Hello, welcome to another episode of Cal's Questions with me, Cal, and I will be asking questions, as is the premise of this show. We're going through some trial and error while we start out the first season. It's going to get better, I promise. We'll see how we get on. As always, I am with Paul, the producer. Paul, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul, aka Ampersand. I run Ampersand Productions, and I'm here to ask follow-up questions, be a producer, and make sure everything runs smoothly.
And he's a gentleman as well. So, yes, this is the show where I am lucky enough to ask various high-profile, influential people, rising stars, if you will, in the TTRPG community. And I am delighted to say that another wonderful guest has joined us today. Andy Lever, aka LostHaven, is with us. Hello, Andy.
Hello.
Yes, nice to have you here. Yes, it's great to have you. Yeah, so I'm going to throw it right at you. Would you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Okay. I mostly do art out there in the tabletop RPG community, mostly on Twitter, although I've started to branch out into other social media. And I've got a bit of everything. Characters, environments, maps, logos, everything. Yeah.
You're a busy man.
Busy. Sometimes not as busy as I could wish, but at the moment I'm actually doing quite a few things, so that's all good.
Yeah, and if you're all right with me mentioning a few of them, I mean, yeah, I see you do some amazing art, digital art, graphic design, illustrating, game design, which we will get onto. Recently it was Irizumi as well, wasn't it? The Japanese drama-inspired. It's Yakuza, isn't it?
Yakuza, yeah. I started to dabble in game design a little bit recently. Paul has got a playtest in one of those games that I'm currently working on.
I'm sure Paul will be telling us all about that. And if that's the one I'm thinking of, I'm very excited for it, by the way. Would you tell us a bit about Yakuza?
So, Irizumi, I've got a print copy of it here. Is a Caltrop core game, which uses all D4s, which is where the name comes from. I can't take credit for designing the general premise of the system. That goes to Titanomancy, who is big on Twitter. They came up with the Caltrop system. They make it open for anyone to use and design their own games from. The Caltrop system, as is pretty simple. You use D4s, you roll a pool, you take the highest one. I went and took that and added some of my own mechanics on top of it to help kind of get the kind of crime, ambition and loyalty sort of themes across a little bit more, and to make combat a little bit more complex and a little bit more tactical. But the game is generally, you all play as gangsters, so you're not necessarily good guys, which makes it a little bit different from the way most people play D&D, where you're usually heroes or somewhere in between. You play as Yakuza members, you're gangsters, you're criminals. You do bad things, bad shit happens to you. Such as there's a mechanic in the game for getting part of your pinky chopped off, which is one of those.
Yeah, that's pretty Yakuza.
I'm going to say a stereotype, but it's a thing that happens. There's a term for it, Yubitsumi, which is a finger shortening. And there's a whole lot of history and stuff behind why the Yakuza do that. And it's all in the book, it's all in the PDF, which is available on itch. The physical copy that I've got is just for me. I wanted a physical copy of it just to have.
Absolutely.
I don't sell them or anything like that. The digital copy is up for sale on itch and Ko-Fi.
Amazing. And that's using the Caltrop core, wasn't it?
Caltrop core.
System. And that's, I believe, it goes to be like Maps and Quests, and it's Titanomachy, if I'm pronouncing that right. I might be.
Yeah, I pronounce it Titanomancy, but it's probably not. I probably pronounce it.
Yeah, I can't read, so it's pronounced how it's pronounced. But yeah, I mean, I've looked into it a fair bit. Haven't had a chance to use that system myself, but I would very much like to play Irizumi and get introduced to that system and give it a go. It sounds really, really cool.
Yeah, we've been doing an actual play of it, which has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, with that as well, I mean, you obviously do your art and things like that. Was it digital art that got you, like, was digital art before TTRPGs, or was it the other way around?
No, I've always liked to draw and stuff, yeah. But I got into playing tabletop RPGs quite young. I was about 10, and an older cousin introduced me to it. When he had friends from college over, and they were sitting down, they're setting up to begin a new campaign, a second edition D&D, and I happened to be up visiting, and I was going to be spending the night at my aunt's house, and I barged into the room, and it was like, you can either play, and if you're going to play, you're going to play this, or you're not allowed in. I'm like,
No.
okay, I want to play. So, and he's like, here, you can play a cleric, and he gave me like a human cleric, which, yeah, I was designated the party healer, which, yeah, but at 10 with second edition rules, like, I didn't have a clue what was actually happening. I was just like kind of rolling dice and like.
Were you having fun though?
Having fun,
great.
yeah, but like I couldn't wrap my head around the mechanics or anything like that. But
A lot of people seem to equate, and I've seen it, and I can't take credit for this, is that being designated the cleric / party healer is akin to being selected as the goalkeeper in a football / soccer match.
yeah, it's like
And I love that.
We're gonna let you play, but you just stand back and make sure nothing bad happens.
Exactly that. Don't
And-
let any goals in.
And yet, without you, the team would be a lot worse off. Like, if they just removed the goalkeeper from a football match, your team would probably notice that. So,
Yeah.
I think that's probably quite accurate. It feels like the worst role, but can potentially be the most important.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where in like second edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, I got one spell per day.
No.
So at level 1, I don't know how much they would have felt the impact of me being there. It added up after a short while.
That's so cool. Yeah, you did. I mean, you've done so much. I mean, I've got a list, and I've seen your name pop up attributed to so many different things. One of them was with Derek from DM Studios, who we've mentioned a few, and lucky enough to have had on as a guest as well, and that was Artifacts of the Arcadian Sentinel as well. Would you tell us a little bit about that as well?
It kind of came about by accident. Someone had actually approached me about doing a logo for their podcast, which was going to take place in the Feywilds, and they wanted particularly a rapier style sword to be there, so I drew it and then sent the sketch to the guy, and he was kind of talking with some of the players who were part of the actual play, and they were like, oh no, like, this guy's going to do the logo for us, we thought we told you that.
Oopsie.
And so I ended up with this drawing of this really elegant sword with no use for it, and kind of sent the sketch over to Derek, and he was like, yeah, it's really cool, I really like the design, we could maybe do something with that. And then I ended up drawing the other 4 artifacts, and then it kind of grew bigger, where he was like, oh, we should add a subclass for the ranger into it, and we can add a big bad guy, and we're going to do an adventure as well, but it was starting to get a bit too big, so we're like, the first project together, we'll keep it a little bit.
That's
shorter.
so cool, and no doubt, you're going to be doing a load more. And yeah, he's really great to work with. Paul do as well. And I'm gonna hope now that this is the next one. This is the one that you're doing with Paul. And correct me if I'm wrong, but is it Fractured Crystals that you're doing with Paul, or is that something else?
Fractured Crystals. There's a connection there to the game that Paul got to test play in. Fractured Crystals is a campaign that I'm currently running with.
Yeah.
I've been running it on and off for the past 2 years with a group of players. That's inspired by games like Final Fantasy and things like that. But it uses a game system called Anima Beyond Fantasy, and it's the most complicated rule system that you've ever seen. There, like, you can make whatever character you want in the game, and there's mechanics there for designing your own, like, Dragon Ball style martial art techniques and all that sort of stuff. But
I'm sold.
it's so complicated that none of the players actually know how to play the game. It's just they just rely on me for telling them what to roll and when to roll it, and it's like, cool. I like the feel. I like Japanese role playing. I like Final Fantasy games and games like Legend of Zelda and stuff. So I decided that I was going to go design my own game system with all those influences that wasn't anywhere near as complicated as Anima Beyond Fantasy, and that's the game that Paul got to test play in, and that's called The Skies Above.
The Skies Above. That's the one. Amazing.
The name comes from Final Fantasy X. It's one of the songs in that game, but it ties into the setting where it's all floating islands up in the sky after a cataclysmic event has happened in the world, and so you're kind of adventuring and traveling around this new world, essentially in the game setting, and it has stylistic. I've done some art for it. You might have seen some of that on Twitter, and it's got more of that anime style to it, which is something I like to I like to change styles up a lot. I do a lot of different styles of art. I don't stick to one style, and there's reasons for that. Like, you get a lot of conflicting advice as an artist, where some people put a lot of emphasis on finding your own style, which is good, and it works great if you're doing stuff for yourself only, personal art. But industry advice is, like, if you go work for a company, say you went and worked for Blizzard or something like that, they would ask you to draw in their style, like. So you kind of have to be adaptable if you're wanting to do it as a career path, to be fair.
Yeah, from what I've seen, I mean, you're nailing it. I really like the art you do, so fair play. I mean, if Paul has tested out then The Skies Above, Paul, what did you think of this game?
Yeah, I thought it was really good, even though you could tell it was on, like, the beta level, so to speak. It was on testing grounds. I thought it showed a lot of potential and a lot of creativity as well. I think, if I remember correctly, I played a Dark Wizard. Was that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I would have said if you were going to play someone, it probably would be Dark Wizard.
Yeah, I do like them. And yeah, I really enjoyed what the leveling system was effectively going to be, and how my spells transferred into, like, my resources, my HP versus my not HP. What's the spell usage?
MP.
MP.
Mana points.
Magic points. Yeah. I really enjoyed
mana
that.
points.
Mana
Points, Paul.
Mana points. Sorry. But yeah, I really liked it. I liked the way that the different players all had a very specific role, and that translated to whereabouts on the battlefield that you positioned yourself, front or back. And then I really loved the gelatinous cubes that you presented as well. I love the art for those. I think they're fantastic. And yeah, I liked how the different sizes and colours of gelatinous cube meant different things. It wasn't just the typical 5x5 cuboid. It really mattered, and I really enjoyed that. So yeah, really good concept. We gave some good feedback, and I'm excited to see where it goes from where it was when I played it.
Yeah. I love Final Fantasy stuff. I mean, I'm getting vibes, and granted, I haven't seen this in the work. It's still in the testing phase before it gets released, and I am looking forward to it. Sounds a bit Final Fantasy Tactics-y. Am I right? I haven't been right much so far, to be honest, but go on.
Tactics is a good point of reference. As Paul was saying, the different character classes could be in the front or back row, so it's actually more like your older Final Fantasy games, like from like the old 2D ones on the NES and Super Nintendo up to like the PlayStation 1 era ones where your characters would be in the front or back, and that would depend, like, vary how much damage and stuff they took from attacks and all that sort of stuff. So the game uses a system like that where there's a front row, which is mostly for melee combatants, and then there's a back row, which is for your squishier character classes, like the mage classes, or there's like a ranger huntery type class, which I'm still designing, and then there's some classes that kind of break the rules with it. There's a dragoon class, which is like your spear wielding character class in Final Fantasy games, and ability wise, they've got a lot of abilities that allow them to just ignore the front rank and hit enemies in the back, or go through and hit multiple opponents, like full on spear lance through the front row and into someone in the back.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds very good.
Awesome.
Yeah. So
is it like? Sorry, go on.
They were level 1 characters, so they were kind of limited on what ability. I should do another test play where the characters are maybe level 4 or 5, and they've got access to a few more abilities and stuff, just to kind of get a better idea of how they work. But I think for a level 1 test, everything went kind of smoothly, and it gave people enough of an idea of what the game was going to be like.
So cool. Yeah, I mean, would you say that would you say it's easier to learn than D&D? Or are they totally different sort of?
They're totally. I think they're very different systems. I don't know what other game systems you've played. Savage Worlds is fairly. It was a big system for a while. It's kind of died down over the years, but it uses a system where each of your attributes has a different die type associated to it. And the game that I'm designing has a similar system where you've got your 6 attributes, and when you make your character, you associate a different die type to each of them, and when you level up, you'll get the opportunity to increase some of those attributes to, like, from a D8 to a D10 or a D10 to a D12 or whatever.
I don't know. The reason I ask is because quite a few people I've played with, not just D&D but other ones as well, the reason why they wanted to give TTRPGs a go, mainly D&D to be honest, is because they love Final Fantasy, and they go into it thinking that it's that D&D is like that, but it's not. I'm just thinking, would The Skies Above be a better place for them to start?
Yeah, I think things like combat and stuff are going to be a bit more streamlined than Skies Above, because it's a role-based system where you're either in the front or back. It's not as tactically complex as having to move around a gridded battle map or whatever, which a lot of people prefer to use for D&D. I'm still very much a theatre of the mind sort of guy, and I think for that sort of play, it requires a lot less setup for the GM, not having to worry about battle maps and stuff. And for players, it can simplify a lot of choices during combat. Like, movement isn't really going to be an important part of the game system. And yeah, I think in some ways it will be easier to pick up than D&D. I've not actually played 5th edition in a while. After this stream, after this recording on Twitch, I'm going to be running Star Wars 5e fan conversion. It's the first time I've ran 5th edition in any form in about a year and a half or 2 years.
Busy man.
And I made one pre-gen for the one shot, and I'm like, I absolutely hate characters.
What I would personally say is, if you know how to play D&D, you'll pick up the Skies Above really easily. There's a lot of transferable skills. The very base concepts are the same. There's just a change of numbers and words. But if you come from a Final Fantasy background, and I'm saying this as someone who has never played Final Fantasy, I think if that's what you're looking for, play The Skies Above, don't play D&D, because like you've said, Cal, D&D is nothing like Final Fantasy from what I know. But The Skies Above, I can absolutely see a lot of parallels there to Final Fantasy. So for all those looking to go from that sort of turn-based game to TTRPGs, then yeah, absolutely. Check out The Skies Above. Don't bother with D&D, because you will be sourly disappointed, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I unfortunately haven't had a chance to test it play, so please invite me.
There will be opportunities.
I would love to get in on that as a fan of both Final Fantasy and TTRPGs in general. It does sound absolutely fantastic. And yeah, that's The Skies Above, not Fractured Crystals, as I previously said. Fractured Crystals is your actual play on... Yeah, so
on
apologies,
Twitch,
but
no, it's, I think when I started designing The Skies Above, I used the same name. I used Fractured Crystals for a while for the in development sort of name, and then as parts of the setting started to kind of evolve, then I decided to move away and use a different name to kind of represent that game system opposed to the campaign. But that happens when you're working on anything, really.
Yeah, it's in progress, and I will be keeping my ear close to the ground and checking out how that progresses. I mean, I don't want to push you or anything. When do you think it might be ready to be released? Are we talking a year? Are we talking 10 years?
Right now, you've heard it here first. He's actually releasing it tomorrow. No, I have no idea.
What Paul got to test play was like the first sort of draft of a lot of the base mechanics of the game. So it's not even beta version; it's like an alpha version of the game. The different races or species or cultures or whatever term you kind of want to use for that sort of category don't even have mechanics yet. They're all 5 of them are there. We wanted to kind of have 6 species of came up with 5. We got a little bit of everybody. I think during the test play was playing a different rate. The 2 mages were like cat people, or like not cat people, not like furry cat people. Like Muggles. Oh, it's my version of Muggles, where they're like little tiny cat people with wings and fluffy tails. So yeah, Paul was playing one of them called Mr. Cat.
I was called Mr. Cat. Yes, that was my name.
But yeah, they're like the equivalent of Muggles in the setting. But none of the races really have any mechanics. So that's the next step. Is we figured out how combat was going to work. There's a few tweaks that I've made. I've made a few adjustments to some class abilities, and I'm going to start adding in more layers, which will be like racial traits and all that sort of stuff that add a little bit more complexity to the system from where it is now.
Sounds great.
Probably about a year, I'm hoping.
Right, putting it in a year as of... What's the date today? The 11th. So...
Don't tell people the
calendar.
Don't tell people the date, because it shows how long it's been since we recorded this to when we release it.
I didn't say what month. And also, Paul, I'm going to call you Mr. Cat from now on.
That's fair. Yeah, Mr. Cat. I was I was lucky I wasn't called George, to be honest with you. With like someone asked me what's your name, I panicked. So, yeah, I was like, I played a cat person, Mr. Cat.
The mic just cut out then at the worst point, by the way. It went C blank T. That word was cat, just to say, right? Mr. Cat. Jumping back to Irizumi, I'm interested in that, and I know that's recently come out. How did you? What inspired you to do that? Are you a fan of like Japanese dramas, or is it is it just a cool setting you thought that would work?
There was a few things that kind of inspired with that. Like, I like tattoos. I've got like a lot of them. and I had it in my head that it would be really cool to have a game system where your character progresses the more tattoos that they have. That was the progression mechanic, and that's how your character advances in Aruzumi. Is you pick two different tattoo design elements. They've got mechanical benefits associated them as well as symbolism behind them. And so every time that you would progress through your career as a Yakuza, you pick new ones. So like tattoo design was one, and like Japanese tattooing, which is where the word Arizumi comes from, that is Japanese tattooing style, uh, is just full of symbolism. There's like everything has a meaning behind it. Um, so there was that. I had that idea for a mechanic. I was playing the Yakuza video games. I'm a big fan of the Yakuza game series. And at the time, I was actually watching a lot of Japanese and Korean drama series while I'm like insomnia at like 3 and 4 in the morning on Netflix. And I was like, okay. And then all the elements in my brain were starting to kind of drift together until I was like, okay, so the Yakuza use tattoos. That's how they show how the rank and stuff within their organization. Those tattoos have meaning. Having a high drama game would be good. I like a lot of drama and role playing opportunities when I run games, so it's like that's the sort of game I want to build, and then everything just sort of came together.
That's perfect. I love that. That's so good, and I didn't know that about the hierarchy and Yakuza as well. So that's really cool. I mean, you're working pretty damn hard at all of this. I can tell and I can see in the evidence that you're releasing these things and you're working with Paul to get the Skies Above out, and you're doing your art and you're streaming. I mean, fair play first of all, but what are your goals? What do you hope to achieve with these? Do you want to I mean, do you want to release these games? Would you do it full time or do it for Wizards of the Coast or something?
Well, this is like freelance illustration is what I do. That is the full-time gig.
Yeah.
Not always full-time, but it's the sort of nature of the thing. Like I only started doing it. I joined Twitter about September last year, and it was kind of in this moment of I need to kind of do something. I did a bit of research on how to market yourself online, or as much research as I tend to put into things like that, where I skim read a few articles and go, yep, I think I can do that.
Yeah. I'm master it now. I've read 2 articles. What more do you want from me? I know everything.
No. And I had some art, so obviously I've always enjoyed drawing. I was an art teacher for a little over a year.
Oh, right.
I just, not even teenagers are fine. It's the other grown-ups that are horrible to work with. And so I was in this kind of weird place where I was like, well, I've got these skills and I've got this thing that I'm really passionate about, which are role-playing games, and I have been for over 20 years at this point. Why not try and do something with it? And I think things I didn't expect to happen. Like I met a lot of people on Twitter who, like Derek over at DMDM Studios, like right near the start, or Chuck. I don't know if you know Chuck. Who just kind of embraced me. Like I've always kind of known them, and like Derek was looking for someone to run a new game on his channel, and I was like, well, I've got this list of different role-playing games that I want to run that I don't get a chance to run. And he was like, well, pick one and we'll do it. And we were running Legends of the Five Rings for months. Heart of the Empire, which had all these high drama moments and all these weird and wonderful things going on. and then more and more people were like DMing me like, "Oh, I really like your art for this. Can you do this for me?" Or I've got this idea and this style, and I'm like, I've never tried that style before, but yep, I'll give it a go. Like the Darkest Dungeon, I've done Darkest Dungeon style portraits.
Yeah.
That was a client who DM'd me. Was like, well, I'm starting an actual play. I've got these 6 characters. I really think this style would be really cool for the campaign. You've done stuff for me before. Do you think you could do the style? And I'm like, okay, let me do one of them for you first. And I did the first one. And he was like, "Yep, just do the other 5 for me. Here the money." I'm like, okay. And just this knock-on effect of again when I released a resume, I kind of sneakily did it where I put it on itch like late on a Friday night with the idea that on self-promote Saturday on Twitter I would start promoting it. And so I put it up on itch, and I was doing the self-promo thing on Saturday, and then one of the notifications I got was someone commenting on one of the posts with a screenshot that they'd taken from their own Twitter page the night before, like before I'd even publicly announced the game, from itch, in Japanese, talking about how much they loved the game idea and concept, with like 100 odd likes and retweets from all these people in Japan on Twitter, and I was like, wow, what have I done? I was like, is it positive? Do people like it? And he was like, yeah, the Japanese people seem to really like the idea of playing a Yakuza game. And I was a little bit worried about it because obviously you have things like cultural appropriation. But I really like Japanese culture and cinema and all that sort of stuff. So I try to be as true to the culture as
well, if there's films and books and things about it, then why not an RPG?
So like when the guy told me like, oh yeah, no, the Japanese audience they really enjoy it, I was like because I spent a long time putting a lot of research and stuff into that, and that was just the writing side of things, and then the art side of things I had to kind of practice doing Japanese style tattoo designs and stuff like that, which was a whole different task. And then but
one thing
I do a lot.
Apologies. One thing I will say, because you sort of touched on it there, as a content creator or a producer of content, whether art, video production, anything, and it's something I've learned recently. If someone says, "Hey, can you do this?" say yes, whatever it is. Find out how to do it afterwards, because I've learned a lot. I've learned how to do a lot more things because I said yes, I can do it before I had any idea how to do it.
Definitely.
So like, yeah, I can do that. Sure. Furiously type away. Yeah.
7 or 8 months that I've been doing this on Twitter, I think I've improved as an artist way more in the last 8 months than I had during the time that I spent at uni doing digital art and design or anything like that. Like, I had a lecturer in uni who said the exact same thing that you did. If someone comes to you and they're willing to pay you to do something, you say yes, and then you go figure out all the everything you need to know in between.
When I first started doing video production for TTRPG, I was just doing like 10-second logo introduction, like they're called idents effectively. And now people are like, oh, can you do a 2-minute Kickstarter video? Yeah, I can, because now I know. But if you'd asked me, 4 or 5 months ago, do you know how to do it? I'd be like, not really. Like, oh, what if I paid you? Like, if you paid me, I'd know how to do it. Like, yeah, suddenly that knowledge is there. What a coincidence. So, absolutely.
Just say you can do it, guys.
Yeah.
That's the advice Paul is giving you there.
Just fake it until you make it.
Yeah. That's how I became a professional trapeze artist.
But yeah, I can do that.
If I was falling on my face, well, he said he could do it. It's a
What
different scenario.
Once you fall on your face first, you don't do it again.
Yeah,
That's
see?
it. Yeah, I thought it was my calling. Never mind. I'm going to ask the big question now: is tips on game design and game
Tips on
creation. What have you learned doing Irezumi and with the skies above as well? What wisdom can you pass on to fellow TTRPG enthusiasts / budding game creators?
there is a term that gets thrown around within the art community, and it's called stealing like an artist. Right? Okay, so you look at what other people are doing for inspiration, and then you take little bits from here and here and here, and figure out how you can put them together. And that's pretty much what I've done with Irezumi and what I'm doing with the skies above, where Irezumi had that base mechanic, the D4 Caltrop system. As I say, that added other mechanics on top of it to make it a little bit more complex and to add some extra layers to it. And some of those mechanics were like popped into my head going, oh, this could maybe work to fit this theme. Other ones were like, this game does something kind of like this, and that could translate here with just little tweaks to it. And the skies above is the same, where like there's the skies above is actually, if I was being honest about it, is like an amalgamation of like 4 or 5 different role playing systems where I've went, I like how this works. This could work on top of it. These little things work here if I rename them, and you end up with something completely different and unique. So the advice would actually be to play as many different game systems as you can, indie ones, big ones, and take. But it's the same way if you're homebrewing.
Yeah.
Or you're introducing house rules to your D&D game. It's because you've maybe picked up things that you've seen elsewhere or from other game systems that you might like, but D&D's your main game. All your players like to play it, but you've maybe dabbled elsewhere and went, oh, I kind of like how this works. I can change it a little bit and add it to D&D.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for designing the game. The more game systems you play out there, the broader idea you've got and how different mechanics work.
Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, Paul, you're my DM in a couple of campaigns. So, I mean, what do you make of that? Would you agree with?
Yeah, absolutely. And your reference to with homebrewing as well, completely. But I'd also say it goes a step further, and not just the, let's say, physical or digital products that you make, but in the type of DM that I am. I've adapted over the last year of doing this professionally, because I've watched other DMs do it, and I've seen someone describe something in a radical way. It's like, oh, I'm going to borrow that style of description. Like, oh, this person did combat slightly differently than I used to, so I'm going to borrow that. So it's not just like in our games or in our new systems, but also in how we talk and how we act at the table on either side of the DM screen, really, because I haven't been a player in a very long time, but I imagine from a player's perspective, they go, oh yeah, I love the way that this person played a Tabaxi Rogue, I'm going to mimic that, but I'm also going to steal from this person who played a Tabaxi Rogue because I like what they did. So yeah, I think stealing like an artist, absolutely, continue doing that. I do it all the time, apparently.
Don't give away your secrets.
Yeah.
I think the moment that you stop kind of learning from other people and how they do things is the point you kind of start to stagnate, and you stop enjoying things quite as much. It becomes routine. Like I'm constantly, say, practicing new styles of art, trying new things out, using new techniques, or playing different game systems, or as you said, I don't watch too many actual plays, but what I do tend to do is have them sometimes I'll have them running in the background while I'm drawing or something, and I might stop and go, oh, what's going on here, and like as you said, the way the GM might be describing something or how they're doing combat, or I don't do voices because the only accent I can do is the Scottish one, and that's more useful for playing dwarfs. But yeah, you pick up little things, even if you've got them kind of going in the background. So yeah, the moment you stop kind of picking up on those little things and settle,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you kind of you start losing out. And it starts the enthusiasm starts to kind of fizzle out.
Yeah. So keep always looking for other creators and other things to influence your style, and also always say yes, I can do that as well. Just going back to the previous question, those two things will allow you to develop both creatively and give you ideas as well. I mean, that's how I'm doing this interview right now. Paul said, "Oh, can you interview people?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I can do that." I've interviewed people before, so very much still finding my feet and doing this, and fake it till you make it.
Yeah. You have a voice, so that was it. That's all I needed. That was the credentials I wanted. Do you have a voice? Yes. Is it a good voice? Yes. There you go. Ask some questions.
Well, thank you. That's very kind, Paul. I do indeed have a voice. But yeah, no, that's really good advice. Make sure you don't become too in your own head, and always look outward to other creators. I hope I'm rephrasing what you said there in a very short sentence, Andy, correctly.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep, pretty much. Just always keep yourself open to influences from other creators, and then it'll start to come through in whatever you're doing. The bits that you like will, anyway.
Yeah, amazing. That's so good. We'll be finishing up very, very shortly. But I mean, you work with quite a few different people, and you do so much. Is there anyone you want to shout out at all while we're on here? Sorry to put you on. I do this every time. I do this every single interview. I go, give me a list of people you want to thank, and it's like you didn't know you were nominated for an Oscar and you go on stage. I'd like to thank. But I'm going to do it every time. I'm just going to keep doing it because I find it fun. So please.
It catches me out. Like, I have been doing actual plays over in DM Studios every Sunday since about October, pretty much. And Derek always asks the same question at the end of the stream. Like, oh, what you got going? Is there anybody you want to shout out? And I'm always like, And I'm always the last one that he asks as well. Like, I'm the GM, so it goes all the other players and then me, and I'm still there. Like, I'm
gonna make dinner.
All I'm thinking it's like 10 to midnight, and I just want to kind of go chill. I suppose DM Studios, Derek over at DM Studios is a big, massive help. Me and Derek are also working on a project at the moment that's a lot bigger than Artifacts, the Arcadian Sentinel.
Another project, amazing.
So yeah, Derek's big one. Chuck, who I've already mentioned in the stream, Chuck does stuff, is my best friend here over on Twitter. He'll constantly give me a kick up the backside for staying up too late or not getting stuff done. Scald Shenanigans. Is also just a positive energy on Twitter and constantly encouraging. I'm currently doing some art for Awfully Queer Heroes, which Scald is part of at the moment. I can't really talk about that because it's for a project that we've got down the line. But yeah, those are three of the biggest people. Like, I think those are maybe three of the first people to follow me when I joined Twitter. Chuck and Skull definitely were. Derek, I think, came a little bit later, but not to. It was still within like the first month. You've got a Wolf's Den, Kier. Den, he's big support. There's so many people. Like, that's probably an extra bit of advice to give people is you want to build a community around you.
Absolutely, that's the biggest thing. And again, I'm blown away all the time. Every time I see things going on in the TTRPG community, especially on Twitter, it just blows my mind. It just does. Like, everyone's so nice to each other and hypes each other up. Even me, who is just an idiot. So it's just like, yeah, I love it. And all those people there, I can concur. They're top people.
You want that group of people, right? Because as I said, like Chuck will kick my ass to get me to do stuff, and you kind of need people like that. Especially if you're creating stuff, I have a habit of like an idea popping into my head, and then I'll start working on it, and then something new, will be like. And you kind of need some people who will go, "Oh, what about this that you were working on a few weeks ago?" And you go, "Oh, yep, I should definitely finish that." But there's a lot of good people out there. Both you and Paul are like, also you're constantly like commenting and retweeting and stuff.
Shucks.
And like,
you don't have to say that.
It's good.
Especially not to Paul. God, don't make
But yeah, you need friends in the community. If you try, I think you see a lot of people on Twitter do it, where they try and just completely professional, don't make any connections with anybody, and then they end up being the sort of people who leave nasty comments on people's threads because there's probably that little bit of professional jealousy in there that
I do see a lot of times they'll just post, someone will just post about their own stuff. Like on self-promo Saturdays, they'll just post about their own stuff. On Rising Tides, on Follow Friday, on Whip Wednesday. We have a lot of days, guys. Can we cut these down?
I don't know most of them. Saturday's about the only one that I do.
And they won't engage. They link, drop, and run. Which for some people, fine. Maybe they're having a low spoons day or whatever. I'm guilty of it sometimes if I'm away from my PC, so I can't interact as easily on my phone. But I try my best to interact when I can. Yeah. And then I'll say, oh, why is no one interacting with my stuff? Well, who did you interact with today? It's well, no one. Well, then why should they interact with you? What do you bring to the table in a conversation? What's your personality? Great, you made something. Okay, cool. Yeah. I'm not buying your stuff. I'm buying you, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's about the human side of it, isn't it? You're not a brand. You're a human.
Yeah.
When it comes to things like that, And I count myself very, very lucky to have met so many great people like yourself, Andy and Paul, and to do this show as well, which I will have to wrap up very shortly. It's great, and it's great for me to get to speak to all you creative people. Where can people find you, Andy?
Well, Twitter's a big one. LostHaven Art on Twitter. Instagram, also LostHaven Art. I recently started a Facebook page, which is funny enough, LostHaven Art.
Consistent.
I sometimes shake it up a little bit. On Itch, it's LostHaven Game.
Oh, okay.
And then the big curveball comes on Twitch, where it's Haven RPG, which is because I made the Twitch account way before I made the Twitter account, and so I wasn't really thinking of consistency or branding. But now I have people who follow me on Twitch. It's a little bit too late to change.
You can change your name on Twitch. You can change your name.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah, because I did it from Metapocalypse, which was my League of Legends name, to Ampersand D20, which is obviously my TTRPG name. So have a look.
Yeah, that'll make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to get more social media, because I'm literally other than my own website, I'm on Twitter, and that's it. So, I mean, if they booted me off for retweeting too many capybara gifs, I'm so I'm gonna have to get a TikTok or
Yeah,
something.
join TikTok with me.
Oh no, I don't know.
I've got like
I
2
can't dance,
TikToks
I can't
now.
dance.
Neither can I. No one dancing. Well,
Don't put yourself down, Paul. You can dance just fine. Oh God, no. Right, cancel this. No, delete. Yes, people listening on audio, Paul just danced, so thank you.
Yep.
With that, I am gonna end it there. It's been an absolute pleasure to finally get to speak to you. I know we've interacted on Twitter quite a lot, Andy.
A lot.
Yeah, so and I'll keep, boosting your stuff as much as I can, even with my small little following. And thank you for taking part in this while we find our feet on this, season 1 of Cal's Questions, where this is, so far. And let's not beat around the bush, Paul. It's been an absolute shambles, isn't it? This whole thing.
it's been testing grounds.
Yeah, it's been a disgrace. Frankly, I think we are just so unprofessional, and we don't know what we're doing.
That right there is our unique selling point. Okay, all the other podcasts that you listen to are professional. They're clean cut. We're a mess. Okay, we make you feel better. That's what we do.
That's fine. I'm about to jump over to Twitch and be an absolute shambles with my last minute.
We'll be shambles together. There's our parting message, everyone. Let's all be a shambles together. As long as we're a shambles together, at least we're together. All right.
You're setting an excellent example for the UK side of the tabletop RPG community.
Amazing. Right, I'm off to do some trapeze practice, and this has been Cal's Questions. You can find me at Sealy D&D on Twitter, and Paul, if you would like to introduce sign off.
I have been Paul, aka Ampersand. You can find me everywhere at Ampersand D20. Twitter mostly, TikTok slowly, but yeah, pretty much just Twitter.
Amazing. So check out LostHaven Art. Thank you again to Andy. You can go to sealydnd.com, and this will be available wherever you're listening to it right now. Obviously, that makes no sense at all. We are so unprofessional. Goodbye.